Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Buffs. I'm Mario Vitanzi. That's Zach Seegers. And our first episode last week was so great, we thought, how do we top it? So we went out and brought in the biggest legend in all of Denver sports broadcasting, Mr. Vic Lombardi. In case you guys don't know, between the three of us, 32 Emmys. That's what you get from Let's Talk Buffs. That's what you get from this show. Like it's unmatched what we bring to you. Vic, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
Thanks for your contribution, by the way, to the trophy chest. That's very nice of you. And kind words, Mario, from my former intern who used to come over my house at 7 a.m. in the basement with me and Gary Miller 15 years ago or so, and used to sit in the corner and offer us research material. So it's been a long time, my friend. Thank you.
Oh, no, of course. It's fun. And I'm sure you remember the time I was so nervous to talk, and, Gary was a little bit intimidating. I never wanted to step out of line. And you guys this was during the Tebow time. And so we're talking Tim Tebow. And in the middle of the show, I raised my hand because I don't want to be rude and disrespectful and step out of place. And you interrupted yourself and said, "What the hell are you doing, Mario? Like, if you have something to say, why are you raising your hand? If you want to say it, just say it." And you never should have gave me that green light because I have not stopped talking since.
Yeah, that's a problem. We unhit your mute button. So,
so anybody that doesn't like how I am or thinks that I'm a little bit too much, you have Vic Lombardi to blame for that.
Well, you guys have a great show. Who did your graphics and all that stuff? It looks beautiful.
Me. Thank you, Vic. I appreciate it. Hey,
I mean, how do you build stuff like that? I don't even know where to start.
Man, lots of workarounds so I can be fast and speedy. I'll have to tell you some other time. Shout out AI really for removing the backgrounds from all the photos for me.
Yeah, well, sweet, man. I mean, that's something I could never do. So that's the beauty of doing media in the modern era, is that you can make things like that really pop and look cool. So let's fire away, fellas.
You know what? Speaking of popping and looking cool, that's a beautiful transition. Is there anything cooler, or is there anything that pops more than Colorado football right now? I think when Deion came in, we knew there were going to be changes. We knew it was going to be better. But Vic, man, in my wildest dreams, I never could have imagined what's going on. They just beat the absolute corn out of Nebraska. They won, obviously, in week 1 on the road at TCU. Just give us your thoughts. Like, take us through what's happening. I still can't wrap my mind around it.
Well, me neither. It's the biggest turnaround I've ever seen in any sport, anywhere, anyhow. I mean, they went from an also-ran program last year, arguably the worst Division I program in FBS, to now not only the biggest story in college football, but the biggest story in sports. I mean, listen, ESPN and Fox are both sending their pregame crews here. Stephen A. and Shannon are coming back on Friday to talk pregame for CSU. That's all Deion and CU football. And it's amazing to see them. A lot of people doubted them, present company included. I didn't think they'd beat TCU. I just didn't. But then they showed us they have a lot of talent and it's ready to jive. And then what they did to Nebraska last week was even better. I'm not going to put any cap or any ceiling on this team anymore. They will go as far as they want to go. I am so impressed.
I fully want to echo that. I mean, you look at the Pac-12, and I think at one point, maybe you're circling Oregon coming up and USC as these unbeatable teams. And you see Oregon struggling with Texas Tech on the road. Pac-12 notoriously kind of cannibalizes itself. It seems like a conference championship, the sky's the limit for this squad. And to your point, Vic, it's crazy. You've got Stephen A. Smith, First Take, the #1 show in sports television, coming to Boulder for CSU, the Rocky Mountain Showdown. When was the last time Stephen A. Smith was flown out by ESPN for a college football game? Maybe the national championship. Definitely not a small state rivalry.
They're not coming to Denver. I had to teach Stephen A. at the All-Star game how to properly pronounce Nikola Jokic's name, for crying out loud. So these are dudes, they don't come out to Denver, Colorado too often, let alone Boulder. And the fact that this has taken center stage in sports is remarkable. Soak it in, because when college football is relevant in our state, and it used to be extremely relevant, there was a day in the early 90s, late 80s, where the Broncos were #1 and the Buffs were #2 back then. That's when they were national champions. It's so cool to have college football in the scene again, because it just makes it a very versatile city now. We have a little more than just Bronco talk to chew on.
Yeah, and
Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
These players too, like the program and Coach Prime and all of that is amazing. But then the players too, you've got Shador Sanders, who Mel Kiper just made him QB3 for the upcoming draft, said he's a surefire number 1 pick if he waits around until 2025. You've got Travis Hunter, the Shohei Ohtani of football, right in Boulder, a 30-minute drive from Denver. I mean, to your point about soaking it up, fans need to. It's worth the price of admission. This might not be back in Boulder for a very long time. Get in while the show's here.
Well, it just goes to prove, man, when you got a quarterback at any level, you can win and you can do some things. They've got a quarterback and they surrounded him with an abundance of skill position players. And I like the way Prime has sort of approached this. He's addressing the trenches, obviously, but he started with the outside in. Most teams start inside out. He went outside in. Got his quarterback, got his receivers, got his running back, got his corners. And then he said, we'll see what we can do with the rest of those spots inside. And so far, so good.
So let's talk about this Nebraska game. I think what we've seen through these first 2 games that Dion has done better than anybody, than anybody that can imagine, aside from obviously bringing in all these new players, is he's the world's greatest motivator. He was a motivator for TCU. He was a motivator for the Nebraska game. You know, the it's personal. That was what they were thriving on, you know, to the point where Nebraska made the mistake of standing on the CU logo before the game. And Shador Sanders went right out there and confronted them. And it was just like the rallying cries that he's been able to construct and put together to get this team motivated has been incredible. So I guess my question, Vic, for you is, how do you maintain, if you're Dion, how do you maintain that level of motivation? Because, you know, you could think that it would get stale from week to week, or how do you keep it fresh? Like, how do you approach that? Because that's been what he's done better than anybody.
Well, you got to come up with a script every week. You know, the script going into TCU was nobody believed, and rightfully so, because nobody saw him play. And then with Nebraska, I mean, let's be honest, they sort of made a mountain out of a molehill. I get the whole thing at midfield, but the way they built on that and the way they used it as a lack of respect, and, you know, it's what great players do. Michael Jordan was renowned for taking just a slight dig or an insensitive remark, anything, and turning it into a motivational ploy. And that's exactly what Prime is doing. He's doing that with himself and his players. Is there any reason we're seeing your naked hand just go to work on that thing?
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I'm just, you know, we were having technical difficulties and we were trying to get it working, and my phone's trying to die, and this is where I'm recording the show from. And so I'm just trying to do my best.
I just love your naked hand just going at it. I mean, I'm like, is this sudden? Are you filming a porn during our podcast here?
Listen, man, I'm multi-talented, okay? I'm a multitasker. I can do a lot of things at once.
It's got some Kim K vibes, Mario.
Yeah, well, she's famous and rich, and I also have a big ass, so we're very similar.
Well, I thought this was going to be the first ever Buffs podcast turned pornography, but you do you, man. Just don't.
There's probably a market for that, right? Let's get back on track, Zach. Zach, give me your quick thoughts about the Nebraska game and how everything went.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was terrific. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. But talking about the stuff at midfield, I fully agree with Vic. I think this is Deion Sanders is a good coach. He's not just a good recruiter. Like, we already knew he was a good recruiter. We knew that in the offseason. Now I think it's become clear. That he's a good coach. I mean, I don't know what Mario's doing, but I'm going to soldier on. Now it's become clear, I think, that he's a good coach. Yes, the team was less disciplined on Saturday, but I do think sometimes it's not all about being tied up and you know, or buttoned up rather, and clean cut and all that. Sometimes it is about having a little bit of an edge to you, and I think that rivalry against Nebraska, when so many of these guys are coming from your Florida schools and your Texas schools and your Georgia schools and have no concept of a Nebraska-Colorado rivalry that peaked in the 90s or 80s, making them care about this by saying, hey, Matt Rule talked trash about this program, talked trash about our head coach during the offseason, and look at them standing on our logo. I agree that ultimately it's probably not that big of a deal, but you see the teams that need it find a chip. Who was doubting Georgia last year? Yet you see them, oh God, I'll run this solo with you, Vic. You see them win a national title, and then all of a sudden they come out and say, no one believed in us, no one believed in us.
Well, listen, before people think that this is going to be mimicked and other programs are going to do what Colorado's doing, understand there's only one prime, and he has ample experience. He did it at Jackson State. He knows how to delegate authority with his coaches. He's very good at that. So it's not like you can just snap your fingers, bring another celebrity coach in there and do this at Kansas State or go to Arizona State. It's not the same thing. What he's doing is very special. And I think it's sort of lightning in a bottle. And he's taken the newfound college football transfer portal, NIL craze, all of it, just the newfound college football, and he's put it in a microwave. So what CU has done in a span of 8 months since he arrived is microwavable college football, the likes of which we may never see again. I am so impressed with the way he runs his shop. It's really a thing to behold.
And to that point of the microwaving college football, I think we've heard a lot of rival coaches say, look at what Coach Prime's doing to college football. This is, a horrible crime on the beauty that is college football. Do you think this is replicable and something that we might see become a problem in the college football landscape? Or is this something that really only Prime can do, in your opinion?
I think it's a Prime thing. First of all, not everybody has a son that has all of a sudden thrust himself into first round status. Not everybody can roll out a Shedeur Sanders and say, run my offense. Not everybody's got contacts like Prime does, where you can say, hey, everybody come to the sideline for this game. Help me recruit. He's helping recruit with his friends. Not everybody can do that. You tell me how many if Peyton Manning wanted to get into coaching, first of all, I'm not sure he'd be as committed as Prime is, but he's got to have all those other elements, and it's not an easy task. Deion Sanders is doing things I never thought possible, and he's doing it in Boulder.
I fully agree. We finally got Mario back, which means maybe we're time to get into our leader and dogs of the week.
Did you have a little fun?
Holy cow, man.
Did you do something with your hand there? Your hand was really busy, and you had a little time.
Yeah, you needed to take a break, I think, Vic.
Okay.
I think you got a little too excited.
Yes.
I had to – oh, my God.
He's back for 30 seconds and he's sideways. All right. Vic, I'm curious. I imagine he'll be right back with us in a second, but why don't you cue us up? Who was your big leader of the week this week against Nebraska? We know how Coach Prime does the leaders and the dogs instead of the captains. Who was your leader?
Well, I think it was Shedeur. He set the pace from the beginning when, he did that thing at midfield. And I think he told his players, we ain't losing this game. And he made it personal, say what you want. But I was really impressed with the CU defense. I thought the CU defense, after giving up all those points against TCU, and they got pretty gutted up and down the field, they were stout, man. They were very opportunistic. They turned that Nebraska turnover machine quarterback over a few times. And I think the defense deserves a ton of credit. That was a great rebound effort for them.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, the defense was amazing. I'll spotlight them as my leaders of the week. I know Mario wanted to, so I'll take up the mantle here. Yeah, I mean, everyone all week was talking about, can this team even stop the run? You saw TCU run it right down their throats. A common narrative was that really TCU cost themselves that game because they weren't committed to the ground game. And I'm so impressed by what we saw Charles Kelly do this week.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't really overhaul the personnel any, but we saw a few more snaps to guys like Taj Alston or whatever, but he's got the same roster and just had that front seven, that front eight, even at times, playing at an entirely different level than it was against TCU. And I think, it sucks that the offense was struggling early on, but it makes me even more confident about the Buffs, weirdly, because I've seen them win the mucky, gritty, physical game. I've seen them win the finesse game. It's hard for me to imagine much else standing in their way now. I feel like they keep answering questions.
Well, it's just 2 games, and, Nebraska's not that good, but there were also 2 games that they came into the season as underdogs, CU did. So they flipped that in a hurry, and you can't discount them for that. We'll find out what they're really made of when they visit Oregon. We'll find out when USC comes to town. And you know what? I know that CSU's a big dog coming in this week. I get it. But you never know in these state rivalry games. You just never know. Crazy things happen. So don't get too cocky about that game. I got to watch them play.
I'm with you there. So I guess let's get right into CU versus CSU. What's your key to the game? I mean, just stay focused. Don't read the headlines.
I think the key is to strike early. And if CU wants to win that game, I think just continue to do what they do and don't turn the ball over. If there's one thing Shedeur Sanders has done extremely well, he's taking care of the football. Dude's gotten hit. He's gotten sacked. He doesn't fumble the ball. He doesn't throw a turnover. So if you can keep the football in your hands, I think it's only a matter of time. That's always the key, especially this week.
Yeah, I hear you there. I want to see them get up early. And for me, it's just don't read the headlines. I kind of implied it with my question. But I do wonder early on in that Nebraska game if there was a little overlooking the opponents after TCU, a little reading their own headlines, because the shot plays, I think, were just as much there in the first quarter as they were in the third and fourth quarter when that offense was really clicking and moving down the field. I just think they were taking advantage of the opportunities at a higher clip, and that was the big difference.
The difference, TCU's defensive front, they played a 3-man front, and Nebraska took a different approach, and they played that shell. They let everything go underneath, so you weren't going to see those huge game-breaking plays, and I think you're going to see more teams do that. They're going to respect CU's speed, and they're not going to give up the big, over-the-top ball. So expect CSU to do the same thing.
I agree. And I'm curious still, what is CU's counterpunch to that? Because I feel like we didn't see enough from Sean Lewis, who's now getting hyped up as a Power 5 head coach in that game. I mean, they stayed in those empty sets, even as you're having free rushers come out and batter Shedeur every play. That was something that was a little on my radar in the first half. Like you're getting all this buzz and all this hype, yet it seems you don't have any contingency plan in case you get blitzed.
Yeah, I don't know. I watched CSU and Washington State, and I saw they had trouble moving the ball. They had trouble stopping that Washington State offense. Maybe Washington State's better than we thought. Look what they did to Wisconsin. So it's hard for me to really go deep on what CSU is going to do. I want to see what kind of team they really are after playing Wazoo. They're switching quarterbacks. They're going with the redshirt freshman. We'll see if he makes a difference. They have to generate offense, though, man. They can't expect to win a low-scoring game because it's not going to be low-scoring.
No, absolutely. And like you said, they have the quarterback getting his second career start, first of the season, started the season as the backup. It's rough to put that quarterback up against Shedeur Sanders, we keep mentioning, is now at the top of his draft class, and expect him to win, an arms race there or a shootout there when he has so much fewer weapons at his disposal.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel bad because CSU's coming in and they're going to be in the spotlight with, game day, big noon Fox kickoff, and all eyes are on this game, right? And CSU's just trying to get it going. Jay Norvell, who I have immense respect for, love that guy. He's at a different pace with his team. Dion microwaved the Buffs. Jay Norvell is sort of using the air fryer. It's not as quick, and it's going to take a little more time. So I just hope they put up a good fight, and I hope they make a game of it.
Hey, look who finally decided to rejoin us. It's Mario.
I've had so much time with Vic over my life, and it's been such an honor and a pleasure that I'm like, you know what? Young Zach Seegers deserves a little bit of one-on-one time with Vic Lombardi. So I graciously bowed out when my phone died and decided to give you guys some special time, but now I'm here to ruin the party. So let's go.
Well, Zach was great. The party's pretty much over, bro. We answered every question. So
all right, cool. Let's see you guys. Have a good night.
See you. Thanks everyone for joining. No, Mario, give us your CSU preview really quick before we get out of here.
Yeah, I heard the tail end of what Vic said, and I'm with him. Like, I think that when college football is good in Colorado, just overall, that is good for the sport and it's good for the state. I mean, I remember growing up in middle and high school, the CU CSU games were a big deal because a lot of times they were both ranked and they were both very good teams, and so the winner of the Rocky Mountain Showdown, like it meant something. And then as we got further along, it was one of those games where if CU won, they're supposed to win, right? It's like that's not necessarily their measuring stick, but that's the foot that they get off on. But if CU wins, then you know that CU is in for a long, long year. And that's kind of what we had seen in the past when CSU did win. So I'm with Vic. I don't think that this is going to be close. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is if it's a trap game because you're looking forward to Oregon in Oregon. And so maybe they come out a little bit flat like they did against Nebraska. Maybe it's a close game at the end of the first half. But at the end of the day, there's just too much talent on this CU roster. I know the Rams just made a quarterback change, which if you're going to do that, I don't know why you announce it. Like, have CU prepare for the guy that they thought was going to be starting, like maybe a minor statistical advantage. But it also seems like what the Rams do well or sort of well on offense is they throw the ball. They always have good receivers out there in Fort Collins, but the Buffs defend the pass really well. Like, that might be the best thing that they do on defense. And I mean, if the Rams can establish some sort of a run game because this CU team can be run on, and if they can pressure the quarterback because this offensive line has a little bit of a difficult time blocking, you know, they're not necessarily opening holes or run lanes yet. I think maybe that's how CSU keeps this close. And I'm with you, Vic. Like, I want it to be a good game. I want this to be a meaningful game that, you know, has us on the edge of our seats in the fourth quarter, but I think it's going to be a laugher that's going to be over by halftime.
Well, I want it to be a good game because it's date night for me and my wife, and so we're going to the game. So I want a good, entertaining game, but not too good to where we're, you know, in traffic till 3 a.m. because traffic coming out of Boulder is always crazy. I am just so happy that we have college football that is relevant, that is on the national radar. That's all you can ask for. College football on the national radar. College football is my favorite sport. And when it's nationally renowned, look out.
Yeah, college football is arguably the most fun sport and product to watch ever. But I mean, as CU fans, man, like, Vic, at least you've had Notre Dame. Like, they're never going to win a national championship in our lifetime, and they're never going to be part of a conference. So it's kind of embarrassing, but it's still Notre Dame, man. Like, you guys get ranked in the top 10 every single year, and every single year you have a top 10 team. And so it's so nice that we're finally trending in that same direction. But like, to that vein, you already said like they've gone above and beyond your expectations. I think we could say the same. I think Dion is the only dude who expected them to beat TCU, who expected them to be as good as they are, right? Like, I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who genuinely in their heart of hearts believed that. Like, I bleed black and gold. My sister went there when I was little. I went there. We're legacy. I've watched CU football my entire life, and I'm a homer, and I never expected this. So knowing what we know now, what are your expectations for this CU team? Like, going into the season, I'm like, if they can win 6 games and just go to a bowl game, I think that would be exceeding any expectations. But where do you see them now, Vic? Like, what are realistic expectations for you?
First, I'm going to overlook the fact that you said Notre Dame will never win another national title. Let's just overlook that real quick and pretend.
I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I want to just let you hear it from someone you care about.
They're currently ranked right now in the country, and they got Ohio State in a couple of weeks. So let's just pretend that didn't happen. They may never in your lifetime, but you might die young. Who knows?
Thanks for coming on, Vic. It's been fun.
As far as CU's expectations, who are we? Who am I to tell you what they can and cannot do? They've already done more than we all expected. They beat their two teams that they were supposed to lose to. They were underdogs to start the season. I'm not going to tell you they can't do anything anymore because they've already told us they can. So can they beat Oregon? Sure. Can they beat USC? Sure. Why not? Let's see the games first, but I would not be surprised with anything at this point.
Zach, what do you think? What are your expectations for the rest of the season?
I'm with Vic. Like they keep pulling off the upset. I'll pick against them when they play Oregon, and I'll pick against them when they play USC. But these things ultimately come down to are, or football rather, what it comes down to is who is the coach, who is the quarterback. And I think CU has the coach and the quarterback. The only team that compares in the conference is USC with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. I think right now I feel like it's those two teams at the top of the conference. It's going to be hard to win one in Oregon. I will probably pick Oregon to defend Autzen. But after seeing them struggle with Texas Tech, I think anything's within reach for Colorado. Like they could go undefeated this season and make the playoffs. I will not expect them to, but they keep proving everyone else wrong. Why bet against them now? I would say, I think they're an 8-4, 9-3 team that plays a marquee bowl game come January. That's where I think this team lands right now.
Let me ask you guys this one last question, and we'll get you out of here, Vic. I know it's late, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking Buffs football with mostly Zach, and it was nice that I got a couple minutes in here as well. So after these first couple weeks, it's looking somewhat likely that Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter could very well be Heisman candidates. And I think going into the season, you have lofty expectations like, oh, man, wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if we had a Heisman runner-up or whatever it is? And Travis Hunter's going on his social and talking about Heisman season loading and all this. And you see it, and it's like, yeah, man, that's great. Like, I hope so. That would be cool. Very realistic that happens. And I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility, depending on how many people they invite, if they continue on this trajectory, that both of these dudes could be finalists for the Heisman. But if you had to pick one more likely to win, like that kind of award, who are you taking between Sanders and Hunter?
Oh, that's easy. It's Shedeur, because Shedeur is an active participant in every play. He touches the ball. Travis, if you're the opposing team, you don't have to throw to his side. You can shut him out. Or he may not get the ball as often because they'll double or bracket him. Shedeur Sanders is touching the ball every snap. So he's going to have a bigger impact and a bigger effect on the game. If anybody wins a Heisman, it'll be number 2.
Zach?
I love that pick. I'm actually going to go Travis Hunter because I think what we typically see, you have to be a top 5 team, and it's been a quarterback on a top 5 team. So I think the Shedeur pick makes sense. But I think if the Buffs are going to zag that trend, it's going to be with Travis Hunter, being a 9-3, 8-4 team that's maybe not a absolute superpower. It might take something else that's so unique that we just haven't seen before, and that's Travis Hunter. I doubt Coach Prime uses him all season the way he's used him these first 2 weeks. But if you asked me after the TCU game if he was going to do that in Nebraska, I would have said no way. So maybe this happens all season long. And if he's playing 100 snaps a game, every game for 12 games, I think he's going to have the production no matter how much teams double him or try to throw away from his side. I think you'll have enough production to maybe pull off a little Charles Woodson all-timer Heisman thing. I think both are honestly long shots, just because I don't know if CU will have the like really powerhouse potential to get there. But if they do, I think it'll be Travis Hunter and just how unique he is.
Mario,
I like both of those answers.
Mario, do you have an Android? Do you have an Android phone?
Of course I have an Android. I'm an adult.
Why do you think this shit went crazy tonight? Be normal and get a freaking iPhone so you don't have to worry about this stuff.
Thank you, Vic.
Victor, first of all, it went crazy because I was on my tablet, okay? Because I was on my MacBook. That was where we were having all the technical difficulties.
You said it was
the Android just ran out of battery because I didn't charge it, okay?
With a flip phone Motorola, and he wants to do a broadcast podcast. I mean,
I'm telling you what, man, the flip phone is back, Vic, okay? The flip phone is back. So don't knock the flip phone because the Android brought it back and it's hip again.
All right.
Yeah, good luck, Mario.
Closing remarks from anyone. Anything else, Vic?
I got nothing, boys. I'm looking forward to Saturday night. I like the show. Congratulations. Great graphics. Everything looks beautiful. Part of the fun of doing these shows is when things don't work. And Mario, you're really good at things not working.
I've never really worked a day in my life, so.
Love you, boys.
Thank you so much.
Love you, Vic. Thank you so much for coming on, man. And I'm glad you think everything looks good. It's exactly why we had you on the show, because you are just as handsome as ever.
It looks great.
You look great.
Well, that's true, but the show looks great too.
I'm Mario Batanzi. That's Zach Seegers. That's the legendary Vic Lombardi. Catch him on Altitude 92.5 every single morning. Mosier, Lombardi, and Kane. Easily the best show on all of radio. And I'm not just saying that because most shows on the radio are terrible. But Vic's is fantastic. So check him out there. Follow him at Vic Lombardi. You can follow Zach at Zach_Seegers. I think we got to hit up the person who has at Zach Seegers and tell him to relinquish the account. Because, Zach, you're an adult. You're a big boy now. You're making a big name for yourself. Can't have an underscore in your name. You can follow me at Vitanzi Therapy. It used to be at Mile High Mario, but, you do one bad tweet and it gets taken the wrong way and your whole life and your whole account gets taken and we start from the ground up. So that's all I got for you. This has been Let's Talk Buffs. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next week to talk about the 3-0 Colorado Buffaloes. Go!